So today, Meet the Maker is with Bel Holland in her studio in the most beautiful location of the Peak District, surrounded by hills. And I loved coming here. It was so beautiful a drive. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming to visit me in my studio. It's lovely to have people visit.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you come to be a potter?
I started by doing fine art at university, and I loved the creative process. I love making, but when I left, I think I was a little bit lost. I didn't really know what to do with myself, and I just knew I wanted to make. So really, I just, on a whim, bought myself a wheel, and I taught myself how to throw. That then led on to buying a kiln, and I got myself, before this studio, it was a little shed in my back garden, and I just started from there, and I started making, and then eventually started selling.
So you mostly just taught yourself. That's amazing.
I did a lot of watching people online and talking to people, but as a process, you really have to find your own way with it. That you can learn the basics of pulling the walls of a pot up and centering, but really when it comes down to it, all the different techniques and centering especially, you have to find your own way of getting that clay to be where you want it to be. And it really is just a process of throwing to fail in a way. You want to push the clay to its extreme so that you learn when it breaks and when it doesn't want to go anymore, and you can learn its boundaries, when to stop. In a way, rather than thinking about just centering the clay, you want to think about centering, it sounds really fancy, but centering yourself, and really think about the fact that you want to be the immovable force, and the clay just has to submit to what you want it to do rather than it taking you for the ride. Slap it on to get it nice and stuck down to the bat, and then I'll go in with a little bit of water just to get it going so it glides through my hands. And now I'm onto the process of centering, and I keep my elbows tucked in to help so that my body weight is doing the centering for me essentially. And then this is a process called coning up, which helps to center the clay more effectively on the wheel. When it's a small ball of clay like this, you can center it without doing this, but there is an element of it. If you have any air bubbles at this point, you can get them out by doing this, because not all wedging works. And then I'll bring it down. I basically use my thumbs and my weight just to push it back over and bring it back down to the wheel head to begin throwing a cylinder. At this stage, I want to keep it nice and flat. Slow down the wheel slightly, and then dive in, really. And at this point, I'm making the bottom of the pot. So I'll go over it a few times to compress it. This helps stop cracks in the bottom. Whenever you see, if you ever watch the throwdown and you see S cracks which go across the bottom, and most of the time that's when something's not been compressed enough. So that's what I'm doing now. And then I've got plenty of slip, so I don't need to go back in with the water. And then I'll use my finger or my knuckle to push in at the bottom of the pot. And then whenever I'm throwing, I tend to throw into the middle so that it just keeps it. It's a stronger, if you think about a triangle, you're keeping it a strong base until you've got the height that you need. I go in at the bottom, and then you just even pressure all the way to the top, really. And whenever you start to feel it drag slightly, you get a little bit more slip. And I'll just do one more pull. And in this pull, I'm sort of straightening the walls, bringing them out to form what you'd do for more of a mug. And then you begin the process of making it look pretty, really. And straightening it. And then get rid of your slip. A sponge. And sponge the inside. Do the rim. And then you can use metal ribs or plastic just to help especially when I'm throwing a mug or something that I really want to have a nice straight side. This helps get rid of the excess slip as well. And I'll go for one last smooth fingertips. At this point, you can wire it off the wheel. So for trimming, especially when you're doing something like a candle holder, you'll make yourself what's called a chuck. That basically enables, because we're trimming upside down, I can't balance the little tiny candle holder bit on the wheel head. So this basically holds it so you can spin it around on the bottom. So I'll just get it so that it's centered, and I just use that. I just know the feel when it's centered, even if there's little bits of clay there. And then you give that a light pat to keep it down to the head. And I'll get a trimming tool, which is just little loop tools really. And then as it's spinning, you don't have to go really fast. You adjust the speed to suit your thing, but you're just trimming the excess layer of clay that you've got around the bottom mainly, and giving it a nice foot ring. This is one of my favourite processes. Satisfying.
So you have quite a lot really, thinning it down quite a bit.
Yeah, around the bottom, especially with the candle holders, because I flare the base out. There is a little bit like a bowl. I'll leave some around the bottom, mainly because it makes them a bit faster to throw. I'll just leave it because I know I'm going to be able to trim it off later. As long as the top of the wall is nice and consistent, I'll just take it off around the base a little bit and give it the nice swoop. And then to make, because this has been wired off so it's a little bit rough, I'll then go in and just take a bit off with the aim of smoothing it essentially. Go back over that. This is quite a heavily speckled clay, so when I'm trimming it, the little speckles come out and create lines in the clay, so I have to go over it a few times just to make sure that I've smoothed it, and go back in with my finger. And then once you're happy with how it looks and it's finished, you pull it off and you've got your finished candle holder.
What's your inspiration? How do you decide what kind of pot you're going to make?
There's endless things you could do with glazes, and the inspiration is endless. A lot of mine I base on the Peak District, mainly because that's the colours I love, the colour palette. A lot of them are the earthier tones. I've got one at the moment that I've called Heath, and that is inspired by the moorlands. I live in Derbyshire, the Peak District, but I'm not far from the Staffordshire moorlands, and we go up there a lot, and I love the heather and that landscape of the birch and the heather, even when it's not at its most beautiful bright purpley pink. I love it when it's slightly gone over and it's really earthy and beautiful. So I like to think that my glazes come from that inspiration. I think even subconsciously they do, just because they're the colours I love and the things I love to do when I'm not in the studio. But I think when it comes to making a pot, I love making something that someone will really love to use, then making them functional, thinking about the ergonomics of a handle and how someone might feel when they pick something up. Especially with my texture, I like to go down the soft matte texture, I think because of the way it feels, not only the way it looks and the way the colours come out, but I really like that. All part of the process of holding a mug is the soft feel, and so it's all that side of it you've got to do the testing for. But really, so people really enjoy the process of using them as much as I enjoy making them, I think that. But it's one of those things where you can put a load of glaze tests in and you'll think, oh, I'm going to have purples, I'm going to have blues, I'm going to have greens, and they come out 50 shades of brown, which is, it's just part of the process, the learning process that you go through, and not knowing how things are going to come out. almost every day something it doesn't go wrong because nothing's wrong, but something goes different to how you imagined it would go, which is nice. It keeps me on my toes.
And you really seem to enjoy the process as well.
Yeah, I love all the different things that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Throwing, even though it's not glamorous and you would never call it glamorous, it's the more glamorous part of the process. Is sitting there and throwing a pot. It's a bit more romantic, what you'd imagine a potter doing all day, but really most of my time, 99% of my jobs are dipping my arm in a great big slot bucket to recycle, getting right in there, pulling it out and recycling the clay, because we save all our little bits of clay that we trim off and recycle it because you can. And then I spend time trimming, packaging, glazing is another slightly less glamorous job. I'll come out of that I'll be drenched because you have these big buckets that and it's all suspended powders in this water, and you'll dip it in, you'll shake it off, and you'll get covered in glaze. So there's all sorts of different processes, some mundane, but I think I like the repetitiveness. I get that quite a lot when I talk to artists and other creatives who have that sort of, they'll be working in a painting and it'll be evolving, whereas I'm going backwards and forwards on the same jobs over and over again. And even when I come to making a mug, I must have made thousands and thousands of mugs. I love trying to make this batch the best batch it can be out of all of them, and constantly trying to improve. And I think I like that when I think about where I'm going with everything, even if it's not the big picture things like, oh, I really want to make this and make this glaze. It's just, I really want to make a mug in 20 years' time that's like, I can really see the evolution of getting better at a practice.
Where can people find and see your work?
I sell online, as a lot of people do these days, and I'm part of the Gallery in the Gardens in Buxton, which is a collective of about 40, I think there's 43, 44 of us, and it's nice to be part of a group. We have a gallery in the Pavilion Gardens in Buxton, and we all take it in turns to do duties and look after it and sell each other's work, sell our own work. I sell to a lot of shops and stockists all over the country really now, and I really like the process of making products together with people as well. It's a bit different because it's embracing their creative ideas and bringing mine and working collaboratively on things as well, which is something I've developed and I really like doing. And I really like making a piece that someone else has had ideas about, and I've thought about it myself and how I could go about it, and then hopefully they're really pleased with it at the end.
Thank you so much, Bel. It's been absolutely lovely speaking with you and visiting you here. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you for coming and visiting me. It's lovely to have people in my studio and have visitors. It makes a nice change from me working on my own. Yes.